Behind the pristine marble monuments of Queen Victoria lies a shadow history meticulously erased by the crown. Behind closed doors, secret diaries were burned, illegitimate whispers silenced, and bizarre court scandals buried under royal decrees. We are taught to reverence an icon of moral purity, yet the private reality reveals a monarch far darker, wilder, and more ruthless than history books dare admit. In 1837, an 18-year-old girl inherited a rotting British monarchy plagued by madness and financial ruin. Victoria was raised under the oppressive Kensington system, a rigid psychological prison designed by her mother and Sir John Conroy to force her submission. Isolated from the world, the young princess secretly forged a vengeful determination to seize total control the moment power became hers. Her reign instantly unraveled into controversy during the infamous Lady Flora Hastings scandal. Driven by paranoia and malicious palace gossip, Victoria publicly accused her mother's innocent lady-in-waiting of concealing an unwed pregnancy. The tragic truth was far horrifying. Flora was actually dying from a massive abdominal tumor. When the young noblewoman perished, the enraged British public turned viciously against their teenage queen. Mobs hissed and booed at Victoria's carriage in the streets of London, forcing royal advisors to stage a desperate intervention. The throne required immediate stabilization, which meant finding a suitable consort capable of rehabilitating her shattered image. Enter Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, a brilliant, calculating German prince whose arrival would completely reshape the British Empire while sparking a passionate, tempestuous domestic war. On the surface, Victoria and Albert presented an enchanting vision of Victorian domestic perfection, but behind drawn curtains, their palace was a battlefield. Victoria possessed an explosive temper and intensely resented her constant pregnancies, describing newborn babies as ugly frog-like creatures. She suffered severe postpartum depression, throwing hysterical tantrums that terrified her royal attendants and deeply alienated her methodical husband. Exploiting Victoria's emotional instability during her 9 pregnancies, Prince Albert quietly usurped executive power over government affairs. He reorganized the royal household, screened her official correspondence, and effectively ruled Britain from behind the scenes. Victoria bitterly fought this loss of autonomy, leading to furious screaming matches where Albert would lock himself in his study, communicating only through written notes slid beneath the heavy wooden doors. To manage her overwhelming physical anguish and psychological distress, court physicians prescribed heavy doses of medicinal narcotics. Victoria became heavily reliant on chloroform during childbirth and consumed frequent tinctures containing opium and cocaine derivatives. This pharmaceutical escapism maintained a delicate balance inside Windsor Castle, but in December 1861, a catastrophic medical tragedy struck that permanently shattered the Queen's fragile mind. Prince Albert suddenly died at age 42 under deeply mysterious medical circumstances officially recorded as typhoid fever. Modern historians suspect stomach cancer or severe chronic illness, but Victoria blamed her eldest son's Playboy scandals for breaking Albert's heart. Overwhelmed by grief, the Queen plunged into extreme, pathological mourning, wearing black for the remaining 40 years of her life, and transforming her palace into a morbid mausoleum. Victoria demanded that Albert's private rooms remain untouched, ordering servants to lay out fresh clothing and hot water daily for a corpse. She retreated entirely from public view, retreating to Balmoral Castle in the Scottish Highlands. The British populace grew enraged by her vanishing act, openly questioning why taxpayer money supported an invisible monarch who refused to perform basic state obligations. In this void of isolation stepped John Brown, a rough-mannered Scottish gillie whose intimacy with the Queen scandalized the royal court. Brown was given unprecedented access to Victoria's private chambers, treating her with an insolent familiarity no nobleman dared replicate. Rumors exploded throughout London that the Queen had secretly married her servant, sneeringly bestowing upon her the humiliating public nickname of Mrs. Brown. Behind closed doors, the relationship took a stranger, occult turn. Obsessed with contacting her deceased husband, Victoria engaged in spiritualist seances orchestrated inside royal residences. John Brown allegedly acted as a medium, channeling Albert's spirit to advise Victoria on government policy and personal decisions. Royal courtiers watched in horror as national decisions were guided by ghostly declarations through a Scottish servant. Anti-monarchist sentiment reached a fever pitch, with Republican rallies erupting across Britain demanding the abolition of the crown. Politicians warned that Victoria's total neglect of public duties threatened to dismantle centuries of monarchy. It took direct political blackmail and urgent warnings from Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli to finally coax the hermit queen back onto the public stage for her Golden Jubilee celebrations. When John Brown died in 1883, Victoria was devastated, but her penchant for unusual male companions was far from over. 4 years later, during her Golden Jubilee, a young Indian clerk named Abdul Karim arrived in England. Within months, Victoria elevated him to the role of her munchie, or official teacher, sparking an unprecedented racial and class war within Buckingham Palace. The royal family and household staff were paralyzed with fury as Karim received lavish gifts, private cottages, and political influence. Victoria learned Urdu, insisted on Karim dining near her, and showered his family with royal favors. Her household threatened a collective resignation, suspecting Karim was a spy or opportunist, but the Queen fiercely shielded him, threatening to brand anyone who opposed him as racist. Yet while Victoria fiercely protected her personal favorites, she weaponized her own family for geopolitical control. Known as the grandmother of Europe, she systematically arranged marriages for her 9 children and 34 grandchildren across European thrones. What she did not realize, or deliberately ignored, was that she was transmitting a catastrophic genetic time bomb directly into the royal bloodlines of an entire continent. Victoria carried a spontaneous genetic mutation for hemophilia, a deadly blood-clotting disorder previously unknown in royal lineage. Her daughters passed this royal disease to the ruling houses of Spain, Germany, and Russia. In Russia, her grandson-in-law Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra sought solace in the mystic Rasputin to heal their hemophiliac son Alexei, directly triggering the violent collapse of the Romanov dynasty. Beyond her physical legacy, Victoria maintained an iron grip over her public image, obsessively journaling every day of her adult life. She penned over 121 volumes of detailed personal diaries, containing explosive state secrets, scathing personal insults about world leaders, and unvarnished truths about her scandalous romantic dependencies. But she knew these pages possessed the power to destroy her legacy forever. In her final years at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, an aging and frail Victoria gave explicit secret instructions regarding her eventual death. She demanded to be buried with a collection of bizarre tokens hidden beneath her robes, far away from public scrutiny, ensuring that her darkest emotional bonds would accompany her into the quiet eternity of the grave. When Victoria finally died in January 1901, royal guards placed a lock of John Brown's hair and his photograph inside her left hand, concealed beneath a carefully placed cluster of flowers. In her right hand rested Prince Albert's plaster cast. The official narrative painted a grand image of saintly widowhood, but her actual corpse carried the secret proof of her unconventional double devotion. Immediately following her funeral, her eldest son, King Edward VII, launched a ruthless campaign of historical purging. Enraged by Abdul Karim's influence, Edward ordered royal soldiers to raid the Munchies' home, seizing every letter written by Victoria and burning them in a massive bonfire while Karim's family watched in horror before being summarily deported back to India. The systematic destruction of evidence did not stop there. Victoria's youngest daughter, Princess Beatrice, was designated as her official literary executor with strict instructions to edit the Queen's vast diaries. For 30 years, Beatrice painstakingly transcribed Victoria's journals while throwing the original manuscripts directly into roaring palace fireplaces, permanently destroying over 2/3 of the actual historical record. Entire decades of personal thoughts were rewritten, filtered, and sanitized to fabricate the myth of a prudish, flawless Victorian matriarch. References to her fierce arguments, political manipulations, drug usage, and passionate attachments were erased. Yet despite this monumental royal cover-up, modern forensic archival research and forgotten secondary letters have slowly reconstructed the startling truth behind the crown. Queen Victoria was not the passive, prudish icon depicted in bronze statues, but a deeply complex, tyrannical, and emotionally volatile ruler who manipulated an empire while breaking every rule of her era. Her dark secrets reshape our understanding of the British Empire, proving that behind the golden veil of royalty lies a history forged in secrecy, fire, and deception. The myth of Queen Victoria was deliberately manufactured to preserve a global empire, but the true story of her wild passion, mental anguish, and hidden shadows remains forever etched in history. The real Victoria was far more human, dangerous, and fascinating than royal censors ever wanted you to know, reminding us that even the most immortalized legends are built upon carefully buried secrets.